sometimes there's some sort of bonus, the year-end bonus, holiday bonus. What advice do you have regarding those funds?
Saving and paying off debt can both happen simultaneously if we plan well and we strategize well. A bonus can give us that flexibility in how we want to do that.
Chad, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yes. Every time you're on here, we learn something new. At least I do.
I hope so.
Right? So you're with Mountain America Investment Services,
Yep.
program manager, right?
That's correct.
What else do we need to know about you, Chad?
Well, my team helps members with their financial planning and every element of that you could conceive of. So
I love it.
That's my role.
I love it. Well, as we're in kind of this season right now, we're headed into the end of the year. When it comes to our planning for retirement, our investment portfolios, or just the end of the year in general, what do we want to be thinking about when it comes to managing our money?
Yeah, great question. It's hard to believe we're this far into the year, right? It's going to end before we know it. So there are a number of things that people should be thinking about prior to year end. I'll touch on a couple of them. One would be required minimum distributions. So this is a law that says at some point, at some certain age, you have to start taking money out of your retirement accounts. The government's given you an advantage to put it in, and they want their money at some point, right? So it used to be 69 and a half, it moved to 72, and then the Secure Act of 2023 moved that all the way to 73.
Okay.
So if you're turning 73 this year, you have until April of next year to take that distribution out. But if you're over 73, you have to do it before year end. So for many, it is a year end issue. And there's pretty significant consequences if you don't do it. If for every dollar that you miss taking out that you should have taken out, there's a 25% penalty. So that's pretty significant. So required minimum distributions is one that you should be thinking about. Taxes generally. There's a few things with taxes that you'll want to think about before year end.
Yeah.
One would be charitable contributions, for example. Making a charitable contribution helps your tax situation dramatically. So if you're thinking about making a contribution, you need to do that before the end of the year. You don't have until April like you do with some other contributions, but that one has to happen before the end of the year. There's also the possibility that you have gains in an account and losses. So to talk with a tax advisor about would it be wise to sell at a loss? We don't like thinking about selling at a loss, but sometimes from a tax perspective, it does actually help us.
Okay.
So that's an important one to think about before year end as well. And then just generally, are you contributing to your IRAs, 401ks? You get great tax deductions in doing that. And some of those will allow you to push into next year to make the contribution, but really it's a year-end thing you want to be thinking about and strategizing around before the year ends.
Okay. Yeah, I heard this, and tell me if this is true and good advice, but you always want to try and max out those contributions if you can.
If you can, and for some that's a stretch, but if you can, it's absolutely a great way to get savings on your taxes. Obviously, it gives you a jump start towards your retirement, whatever it is you're saving for.
Yeah.
So maxing them out is great if you can afford to do it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing that comes up at year end for some people, not everyone, but sometimes there's some sort of bonus, right? We talk about the year end bonus or holiday bonus or something like that. What advice do you have regarding those funds?
Well, bonuses are exciting, and I think people often think even in advance, say, what would I do if I got the bonus, right? I have this new toy, new gadget, new whatever. And that's
a new pool,
fun and
right?
exciting. And there's nothing wrong with doing that, but I would recommend taking at least a portion of that. You know, if you're generally saving 5% of your salary, 10% of your salary, do at least the same with your bonus, if not more. If you can afford to do more, do more. But investing a greater percentage of your bonus is going to give you even more of a jump start towards your final goal of saving for that retirement that you want. So for many, that's unexpected and probably isn't planned to be spent any certain way. And so you have the flexibility or the ability to save that money.
Yeah. So even though we want the shiny new thing, we should maybe think about our future self.
Yes. And with high interest rates, too, you may want to consider paying down some debt with that.
Yeah.
I think saving and paying off debt can both happen simultaneously if we plan well and we strategize well. You know, if you have debt and you get a bonus, you can certainly look at paying some of that off. If we don't have some of that savings, though, you know, being in debt, having an emergency come up is going to potentially cause you to go into more debt. So we need to be saving and paying off debt at the same time. And a bonus can give us that flexibility on how we want to do that.
Okay, love that. So another thing that comes up at this time of year is open enrollment, correct?
Yes, open enrollment for those that are on Medicare, becoming eligible for Medicare. So every year there's a period that the government allows you to make changes to your plan. It's October 15th to December 7th, and that's the only time throughout the year that you can make changes to your plan or get a new plan altogether if you want to. So one other thing to put on your list to look at before the end of the year.
Okay, and remind me, who qualifies for Medicare, or does it just depend?
If you're 65 or older.
Okay.
So that's when you qualify initially. And then from 65 forward, there's a lot of different plans, a lot of different ways to access Medicare. And this open enrollment period allows you to make those changes. So if you're under 65, don't worry about it. If you're over 65, you have to consider that before the end of the year.
So ages to be aware of right now, 65, and then you said 73.
73 for the required minimum distribution, 65 for Medicare eligibility. Okay. There's a few others, but we'll leave it at that.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. What are some other tips? I mean, we're coming up to the year end, right? Obviously, we have this holiday time where we all love to give gifts. But at the same time, after that comes the resolutions, right? And typically that involves saving and all of that. Any tips you have maybe heading into quote unquote spending season?
Yeah, I'd say create a budget and try to stick with it as closely as you can. I've been guilty of feeling good about myself because I created a budget, but then realizing I'm not really going to live up to that, which is not that helpful, especially through the holiday season, because we all get great joy out of giving gifts to others, especially if you have kids or family members, friends that you know exactly what they want, and you find the perfect gift for them, but it can get out of hand really quickly. So create a savings plan in addition to your spending plan. So as you get the year-end bonus, as you are paid throughout the rest of the year, make sure that we're saving as much as we're spending, hopefully more than what we're spending. But I say also enjoy that season. There's nothing wrong with spending money. Just know if you have a financial plan, you should know how much spending will affect your plan. So whether that be a growth plan or if you're retired, if you're on a fixed income, you need to know that buying that gift for your granddaughter, grandson, whoever it may affect your future income. So you need to understand how spending will affect your overall plan.
I love that. And then any tips you have, I mean, we're not in New Year resolution season yet by any means, but any tips you have as we head into that? Or any things you've seen like, what people, when they really set this resolution or do XYZ, they see more success?
Well, I would suggest, as it comes to retirement savings, one, you have to have a long-term approach. So the short-term spending is fun and exciting. Saving for the long-term is sometimes not as fun and exciting because it's a delayed reward.
Yeah.
I think there's some value in working with a financial advisor in that setting because a financial advisor can act as a coach to help you understand the long-term nature of your savings, to help you understand how a short-term expenditure might derail your future life, your future expenses. And that's an important role that an advisor plays, is I'll be your coach. A quick story about that. We worked with a couple. One of the advisors on my team was working with a couple that had a really good income plan. They were both retired. They were loving their retirement. And they came to the advisor and said, we really want to buy this yellow Porsche. They'd found this beautiful car that they'd looked at and that they both just loved, not unlike buying a gift for someone at the end of the year, right? A great holiday gift. And the advisor coached them through that process to say, look, it's a beautiful car. I understand that you want to do this. Here's the implication. You're living on X amount of income today. If you buy the car, that has to adjust to X minus some percentage, right? And they looked at it and said, we don't think we can live on that. We're not going to do it. So that's the coaching piece of it. So as you have expenses and as you have savings, a third party that can act as that coach for you, a behavioral coach, if you will, can be really helpful.
I love that. So let's, take a step back a little bit and say, hey, I'm new to investing. Maybe I haven't invested yet. What's the best time of life, age to really start?
Now, that's a good question, one that we get a lot. Until we perfect time travel, which I understand we haven't yet, the best time to start saving is now. There's an exponential growth component to investing that means it grows on itself. And so the sooner you start, the greater your payoff is going to be at the end. There's a fairly simple example of that I'll share is, hopefully this isn't too much live math, but if you take a 25-year-old that says, I just can't afford to save for my retirement quite yet. I'm building a family. I'm not fully established in my career. There's a lot of really valid reasons why you may not be able to at that point. So I'm going to wait. And so they put it off for 10 years, let's say. So at 35, they start saving all the way to 60, and they save $5,000 a year. So they've saved their own money, $125,000, right? You take that same person that makes a different decision to start investing at 25, but only do it for 10 years. So you invest from 25 to 35 instead of 35 to 60, same amount per year. They would have saved $50,000 instead of $125,000. But at 60, that person's going to have over $185,000 more because of the value of that time. So they started sooner. They actually saved less, but the payoff was greater because they had time on their side. So start as soon as you can. That's a dramatic example, but it's a true example of why starting early makes such a difference.
Okay, so start yesterday.
Start yesterday. If you didn't, start today.
Okay, fair enough. How much do I need to start investing, right? If I'm new to it, you say now's the time. I mean, can I invest with... Do I have to have a certain amount of money to come in and say, hey, I want to invest this?
No, you don't. One of the common jokes we hear from members is, oh, you're the wealth management team. I don't have any wealth. It's not about that. It's not about that at all. If you have the ability and the desire to save $5 a month, $100 a month, $200 a month, up to larger amounts, there is a plan for you to start that consistent saving. So an advisor understands very well what I just talked to you about, that consistent, even small efforts over time produce great results. So if you're willing to say, look, all I've got is $10 a month, how can I start? There are plenty of ways to get started on that. So don't let lack of what you see as wealth stop you from starting a plan. Because starting young, even small, can produce big results in the end.
Okay. And really to get started, you think the best way to get started is to meet with someone, or what do you think is the best way? Do I do research?
Yeah.
Obviously, hopefully I'm watching this podcast, but right?
You know, investing on your own or meeting with an advisor are both very valid ways to get started.
Okay.
Some things to think about: if you have the interest in the economy, in the markets, in products that help you save for retirement, and you have the time to research them, go for it. I think that's great. Many people do that. There's plenty of services out there that will allow you to do that, making your own decisions. If you want to defer, or if you want to have someone else do that for you, an advisor can step in and act in that capacity. So a good advisor would find out what do you think about risk, right? What do you think about the future? How do you feel about the future? How confident are you in the future? What are your dreams into the future? And you may know those yourself, and you may apply those to your own plan, but having, again, it's a third party, an independent party, if you will, look at it and say, here's a suggestion that I think you should take. So that, in addition to acting as the behavioral coach that I mentioned, a lot of people choose an advisor because they don't want to take the time, or they don't have the expertise to do the research that they would need to do to find the right products and services that are going to best help them. So both are valid strategies. It just depends on the individual's comfort level with doing it themselves versus asking someone else to do it for them. There's a lot of analogies around that, right? I'm not going to sew up my own arm if I get a cut, right? I'm going to go to a doctor that knows what he's doing. And another advantage I would say of an advisor is they're not just helping that person they're working with today. They've helped hundreds of other people in a very similar situation. So they can help that person understand, like, I've seen this before. I've helped someone in your same situation before, so I'm confident that I can help you.
Yeah, I love that. Are there any pitfalls that you see for people that are like, oh, I'm taking this by the horns and doing it myself? Any risks there?
One of the risks, and I think we've all probably been guilty of this on some level, is we make irrational decisions. So there's a lot going on in the world, and we often apply what's going on to our own personal situation, whether that be financial or otherwise. So we have an election coming up, right? Do we think that's going to impact the financial markets? Do we think that's going to cause me to need to sell something before I would like to sell it? There's a lot of geopolitical events that come up, and study after study after study has shown that we don't really digest those well, or we don't take the appropriate action for them. So we sell when we shouldn't sell. We buy when we shouldn't buy. We get freaked out about an election or a geopolitical event, and we make an irrational decision. So an advisor can help make sure that we're understanding the true implications of that activity that's going on and not overreact or underreact.
Yeah.
Not saying we should never act, but we have to act within the context of what history has taught us.
Yeah, that's great. And then any other benefits that you see when it comes to working with an advisor? I mean, you mentioned they're your behavioral coach, right? They're going to help us not make those irrational decisions. Anything else that you're like, hey, yeah, this is the route to go?
I think having, like we talked about, kind of a sounding board. sometimes we have goals and hopes and dreams and we just think about them.
Yeah.
But if you write them down, if you talk to somebody else about them, if you know that that person you told about your hope or your dream is going to ask you about it again the next time you meet, you're going to act a little bit differently, like any coach would, whether we're talking about athletics or any speaking coach or piano teacher. They're going to ask you about your progress, and they're going to hold you accountable to action steps that you've agreed to take. So having that accountability partner is a big benefit of having an advisor. Somebody's a little bit removed from the situation, but just enough to hold you accountable to what you committed to doing and what you want to do.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for that information, Chad. And again, I always learn something new. So I appreciate that and appreciate your time today.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to all of you as well. And we will see you on the next episode of Guiding You Forward.